Hey, everybody, it's propaganda time. Donald Trump is about to tell us how we are the best at everything, but in particular, testing. Welcome. It's been a little while since the last stream. Feels like a long time. It's only been a few days, though. And indeed, today we have a press briefing during which Donald Trump is going to make an important statement about testing. You can see what the statement's going to be. America leads the world in testing. Of course, the truth, as you all know, is that the US does not lead the world in testing. As you can see in tests per capita, you've got to scroll down and down and down and down. And then you eventually find the United States here. So it's going to be a lot of propaganda. I hope people are ready for it because it's going to be absolutely brutal. It's going to be an absolutely brutal amount of propaganda and lies today. But we will do the best we can to deal with it together, I think is what we would say. What's going on? I am on antibiotics. That cut that happened because of an extremely alpha thing I did last week, it got infected. I did everything right. I kept it clean. I was cleaning it. I cleaned it right away with hydrogen peroxide, antibiotic cream, and putting Band-Aids on. And I think it was because of my incredibly masculine gardening over the weekend. It's possible that some potting soil may have gotten in there. I don't know. Elements of vegetables, possibly. And it did get infected. It did get infected, and it was quite deep. So I am on antibiotics about halfway through. Okay so far. You know, nothing big to report, but dramatically reduced signs of infection. So I think that's the good news. That's the good news. Super chats are already coming in. Great to see everybody. Make It Simple says, please add more emotes on Twitch. I don't know how to do that, but I mean, if there's no opportunity cost to doing it, I gladly would. Zesty African says, your biggest gripe with the Republican Party? They live in a fantasy world, and everything stems from that fantasy world they live in. Unknown Prodigy says, David, if a lie is in big print, it must be true. Yeah, Trump tweeting a lot of all cap stuff. And Jacob Ratner says, Obamagate was trending all day yesterday after Trump's tweet. Have you ever seen such major projection? Yeah, they're no longer operating in reality. And in fact, the world is laughing at Donald Trump. I have a bunch of articles here. Let me see here. This is an article from, where is this from? I don't remember where this is from. What language is this? Is this, I'm not sure what this is. Anyway, I've been collecting a bunch of articles. As you can see here, disinfectant clearly is referring to the infamous bleach injection fiasco. So many countries. This is from South Africa. Trump suggests trying UV light injected disinfectant as a possible cure. This is from Peru. This is the facial expression on the health person for Trump after his suggestion that disinfectant be injected to treat coronavirus, pointing out Dr. Birx. I mean, it's really bad. Whoops, that's for later. I don't want to go to that yet. So the world is laughing, and yet Donald Trump is going to continue claiming today that we are the best and everybody is looking to us and it's all amazing. And in fact, at a recent press briefing, Donald Trump told this whopper.
And we're going to do a job like nobody's seen before. And I spoke with Angela Merkel today. I spoke with Prime Minister Abe of Japan. I spoke with many of the leaders over the last 4 or 5 days. And so many of them, almost all of them, I would say all of them, not everybody want to admit it, but they all view us as the world leader.
Yeah, that's obviously not true. And if people are looking to the United States on coronavirus, it's because they want to know what not to do, because it's been a disaster. Trump now is maybe going to benefit from the fact that the Brazilian president, Jair Bolsonaro, may have had an even worse response as the Brazilian numbers are growing. In fact, we can take a look at that real quick. Let me see, Brazil, here it is. And as you can see here, that's an ugly curve in Brazil, as many of you probably recognize. Even worse than the United States, where things are basically flat. We are officially just shy of 1.4 million cases, 81.5 million deaths. We are seeing increasingly more and more new cases proportionally in places like Texas. Texas used to always have a tiny number of new cases compared to California, Maryland, Massachusetts, Texas yesterday with more new cases than those places. Georgia is getting to be a hot spot. Virginia is another one. Florida's kind of holding steady, but it's not really looking great. Is the news, I guess, that we need to be discussing. Okay. Welcome if you're watching on Twitter, Twitch, Facebook, or YouTube. I very, very much appreciate it. Are people shilling Bitcoin in the chat? Is that, I see that people are there are people talking about Bitcoin. That's interesting. I mean, listen, I have not been shilling for Bitcoin, but I made clear that I've been slowly accumulating a little more of it over the last 2 months, and it's way, way up. So I can't say I'm displeased by having done that. That's for sure. Let's see here. Alex, a Drumpf Twitler has subscribed on YouTube. Alex Stevenson says via Super Chat, feel free to get in touch via Super Chat. Are you still growing out your hair? Any hopes of a man bun in the near future? Yeah, I mean, I've not gotten a haircut. You can't tell how long it is only because it's just so heavy now that it's flopping over. But it's look at this. I mean, some of this could be 10 inches of hair. You can't really tell. But yeah, it's still growing out, and no signs anytime soon that that's going to change because there's no haircuts happening. And it's close. I could actually put a rubber band around it. It's actually crazy. If we get to 50 members today, I will actually have a ponytail on tomorrow's stream. It is possible physically, and I will commit to doing that. And we will see. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, I would consider doing that only under the right situations. Okay. Keith Stone says, how can Democrats prepare now for a possible Trump reelection? Listen, guys, we can remove him in November. So let's prepare to win, and then we'll deal with reelection if it happens. Dragon Mumless Living Entropy has subscribed on YouTube. Juggalo Trey says, hey, David Pakman, I am pretty dumb, but can you explain the process of absentee voting? Yes, you get a ballot in the mail, you fill it out, and you send it in. That's the process. In some states, you have to request a ballot. California has decided they are going to send everyone a ballot. Every registered voter will automatically get a ballot, which is fantastic. Fantastic. Mart Fillion says, hey, David, I do not know if you have figured out a way for people to send gift memberships, but what about social financing? I don't know what you mean by social financing. The easiest way to gift memberships is actually on Twitch. Twitch has a great system for doing it. On our website, we've not yet turned the corner, so to speak, on that, but that's on the list of possible elements for the website redesign. Before we get started here real quick, I do want to remind people that Donald Trump's current press secretary once said that he was a hateful racist. Remember this?
How sick of polls are people in New Hampshire right now?
Probably very sick, especially when they see that Donald Trump is number 2 and doesn't deserve to be there. The GOP doesn't need to be turning away voters and isolating them. We need to be bringing them into the tent. Donald Trump is the last person who's going to do that.
Kayleigh, this is your guy. He's number 2 in the polls.
Hey, I don't want to claim this guy. The fact that the Republican Party is now having to claim him is both unfortunate and, to me, inauthentic. What's the expiration date then on a racist statement? To me, a racist statement's a racist statement. I don't like what Donald Trump said.
Anyway, so there it is. She explained it away at a recent press briefing like this.
After the president said that some Mexican immigrants were rapists and criminals, you said that language was racist and hateful. Do you
notice she has a page for this that she's turning to?
Still believe that today?
Well, I'm actually glad you asked that because
I have a page about it.
First 4 weeks of the election, I was watching CNN and I was naively believing some of the headlines that
Can you imagine? She says, when I mistakenly said Trump was racist, it was because CNN tricked me. Hire this woman.
On CNN and
reading headlines. That's fine. I just want to know if you also personally still believe that.
I'm actually not going to read the headlines. So I very quickly came around and supported the president. In fact, CNN hired me. I was on many Adolf.
Wait a second. So you went to work for a place that you said was riddled with fake news? That's weird.
On panels where I proudly supported this president, who I believe is one of the best presidents, if not the best president this country will ever have. But I would encourage the individual who did that analysis of my past, rather than focusing on me, he really should be focused on some of the very guests CNN chose to have.
Right. So now she simply goes into criticizing CNN. So This is a ridiculous explanation. She's essentially saying, when I thought bad things about Trump, it was because I was duped by fake news CNN. Of course, if you are so easily duped by fake news CNN, it doesn't sound like you're competent enough to be press secretary. And also, why did you accept a position with them if they are so problematic? I mean, it's just a joke. It's a joke. And she had that ready in her book of media attack. So it's just sick. It's very, very sick. Okay, let's see here. Super chats continue to come in. Samuel Lopez says, Buenas tardes, David. Likewise. Thank you. Tom Owain says, U.S. are a laughing stock to the world, even in the UK. Oh, here's Trump coming in. I see the new member. Thank you. The new members coming in. I will thank people afterwards, but let's listen for the time being. That's weird. We've got no audio there. Let's try maybe a different stream here. The White House stream hasn't started yet. That's odd. Why did we get no audio? It's certainly not muted, but I am not sure. That is really weird. Don't worry. We're going to get it all, guys. Don't worry. But I am just trying to see what is going on here. Very weird, because all of our other tabs were working. Let's go to this one. There we go.
We're here today to provide an update on the unprecedented testing capacity developed by the United States.
Lie.
The most advanced and robust testing system anywhere in the world, by far.
Lie.
This afternoon, I'll also announce new steps that we're taking to make tests even more widely available. To battle the virus, my administration marshaled every resource at our nation's disposal: public, private, military, economic, scientific, and industrial, all at your disposal.
Right.
We launched the largest manufacturing ramp-up since the Second World War. There's been nothing like it since. At the center of this industrial and scientific mobilization was the development of our coronavirus testing capabilities. In the span of just a few short months, we've developed a testing capacity unmatched and unrivaled anywhere in the world, and it's not even close.
Except by 40 other states that do more testing per capita.
Gradually reopen America, and we're opening and we're starting, and there's enthusiasm like I haven't seen in a long time. Every American should be proud of the amazing array of talent, skill, and enterprise our nation has brought to this challenge. In 3 months, the FDA has authorized more than 92 different tests, and over 9 million have been performed here in the United States. 3 weeks ago, we were conducting roughly 150,000 tests per day. Now we're doing approximately 300,000 tests per day, a 100% increase, and
that is true over the last 4 days, and it's still about half of where we need to be.
States will pass 10 million tests conducted, nearly double the number of any other country. We're testing more people per capita than South Korea, the United Kingdom, France, Japan, Sweden, Finland, and many other countries.
We are still 41st, though.
Combined. On Friday, the FDA authorized coronavirus antigen test, an alternative testing technology that can be much more readily manufactured. Quidel Corporation, which makes this newly authorized point-of-care test, estimates that it will be able to manufacture 150,000 tests per day, immediately increasing to 300,000 tests per day within just a few weeks. To further expand our nation's testing capabilities, this afternoon I am announcing that my administration we've got this all approved, it's all done.
Glitched.
Is sending $1 billion to America's states, territories, and tribes. So this has all been approved. We've gotten it done, completed. The money is going out. This major investment will ensure that America continues to conduct more tests than any country on earth by far. I said from the beginning that the federal government would back up the states and help them build their testing capability and capacities, and that's exactly what's happened. This partnership has truly flourished. We have really had a very good relationship with the states and the governors and other representatives within the states, a relationship like I think I can honestly say has not been seen in this country for many, many years. The governors and us are working together very closely, not only on testing, but on ventilators, where we have a capacity that's at this point virtually unlimited. And we're sending ventilators, as you've probably heard from other countries. We're sending many, many thousands of ventilators to other countries because they're in tremendous need. And I think building up a lot of goodwill, but much more importantly than that, we're saving a lot of lives. Most states are now doing a great job. My administration located 5,000 machines in 700 labs across all 50 states. And governors have learned how to maximize these testing resources. The federal government is also supporting states with vital supplies, quick approvals of new tests, and one-on-one coaching from the team here at the White House on how to increase capacity and increase it very quickly. In recent weeks, we've held multiple conference calls with every state, as well as with D.C. and Puerto Rico. We jointly developed testing projections and goals for each state for the month of May, altogether totaling 12.9 million tests. Think of that, 12.9 million tests.
So if we can do that, we would be at about 80% of the absolute minimum where we need to be, if that's done. So their goal is still 20% short of the minimum we were supposed to be at a month ago.
Delivering 12.9 million swabs to states nationwide. We already have them. The delivery will be very quick. We're prepared to provide millions of additional swabs if any state is on a pace to surpass its goal. And their goals are very high. We've set them very high. We've told them to set them very high. My administration will also provide approximately 9 million transport media, which are used to transfer swabs to the lab processing, a complicated process, but we've made it simple. As a result of these actions, every single state will be able to test more people per capita in May alone than South Korea has tested in 4 months since the outbreak began.
Note that South Korea has fixed the problem, so their need for testing at this point. Now, all of a sudden, Trump only wants to talk about South Korea. South Korea doesn't have 2,000 deaths a day.
Labs and Thermo Fisher. Some of these incredible companies produced rapidly for us, and their products are here with us this afternoon. These are all different products that were literally just developed.
Exciting products.
And if you can imagine that, and these are the best machines and the best equipment anywhere in the world, and other countries are calling us, and we're trying to work as much as we can, not only on ventilators, but also with testing. My administration also continues our tireless effort to expand testing in the most underserved communities. Through our partnership with the private sector, leading pharmacies and retailers are now operating over 240 testing sites across the country, and that's in addition to all of the other sites that we have working. 70% of these sites are located in communities with unique vulnerabilities. There will be more than 300 sites by the end of this week, and retailers are making plans to open up hundreds and hundreds more locations within the next 30 days. These additional sites are helping us ensure access to testing in every community. My administration is fighting relentlessly to protect all citizens of every color and creed from this terrible virus, the invisible enemy. In addition to vast amounts of testing supplies, my administration has partnered with the private sector to coordinate the delivery of more than 90 million N95 masks, and these are of the highest quality. Many are made right here in the United States, a capacity we didn't have at all at the beginning. 126 million surgical masks, likewise, many are made here. 9 million face shields, 21 million surgical gowns, 993 million gloves, and 10,690 ventilators. We're building thousands of ventilators in numerous plants all across our country. It's incredible, actually.
This would all be pretty good if it was 7 weeks ago, right? So like now we're finally starting to do some of the things which would have made sense to do when South Korea was doing them.
Of course. We mourn for every life the virus has claimed, and we share the grief of all of you who've lost a loved one, and that goes worldwide too. Many, many countries, 184 countries at least. Thanks to the courage of our citizens and our aggressive strategy, hundreds of thousands of lives have been saved. And we have saved, and if you look at on a per 100,000 basis, we're at the best part of the pack, right on the bottom. Germany and us are leading the world.
We
Germany
are
and
actually 14th highest in deaths per capita. 14th highest in deaths per capita.
through every challenge and hardship and danger, America has risen to the task. We have met the moment, and we have prevailed. Americans do whatever it takes to find solutions, pioneer breakthroughs, and harness the energies we need to achieve a total victory. Day after day, we're making tremendous strides with the dedication of our doctors and nurses. These are incredible people. These are brave people. These are warriors. With the devotion of our manufacturing workers, food suppliers, and lab technicians, and with the profound patriotism of the American people, we will defeat this horrible enemy. We will revive our economy, and we will transition into greatness. That's a phrase you're going to hear a lot because that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, from
We're
you.
going into the third quarter, and we're going to do well. In the fourth quarter, we're going to do very good, and next year I think we're going to have one of the best years we've ever had because there's a tremendous pent-up demand.
Hopefully he'll be gone.
It's a demand, and I'm feeling it. I've felt things a lot over my life, and
Had a lot of
I've made a
feelings.
lot of good calls. It's a demand like I don't think I've ever seen. There's a pent-up demand. There's a spirit in this country like few have seen. And I think you can say, and we've helped a lot of the countries a lot.
Esprit
Really
de
a lot.
corps.
There's a tremendous spirit all over the world to beat this terrible, terrible thing. But we're transitioning to greatness, and the greatness is going to be in the fourth quarter, but it's really going to be next year, and it's going to be a year like we've never had before. I really believe that.
Let's
As
hope
good
he's
as
gone.
we've done, and we've done great. We had the best economy in the history of the world, not just here, but anywhere in the world. You can talk China, you can talk any other country. We had the best economy anywhere in the world. And we were going for numbers, whether it was unemployment numbers, where we had our best numbers, employment also numbers, a little different, where we had our best numbers,
little
almost
different.
160 million people. All of that, we had the greatest stock market numbers ever. I think we had 142 days where we set records. In a short period of time, 152 days, we set records in the stock market. We rebuilt our military, all built in the United States. All
Right.
of our equipment built, $1.5 trillion plus.
Because the cupboards were bare.
On the southern border, the wall is being built. It's being built rapidly, and now you don't hear the opponents talking too much about the border. They don't like to talk about it because it seemed that we were right on a lot of things. One of the things we were right about, one of the many things, was the border. We have a very powerful border now. We had one of the best weeks in the history of our border between the United States and Mexico, our southern border. We had very few people coming in, very, very few, almost record low numbers. And the wall is being built. It's up to 181 miles already. It's being built rapidly. People don't talk about it anymore because it's very successful. And the area where the wall has built, that is a lot still, but we want to be up to 450 by a very short period of time. Early next year, we should be up to 450, and very shortly after that, over 500 miles.
Well, but he should be gone by then.
Completed.
We do our job.
But it's had a tremendous impact. But again, we've had the best numbers. The last thing we want now with this pandemic is for people to come across our southern border. And again, we're doing record numbers, meaning record low numbers.
Right.
So I just want to thank everybody, and I want to introduce Admiral Guar. If you could, please come up, and
Guar.
Brad, if you would, Brad Smith.
GWAR.
And they're going to do a little explaining as to what we've done with regard to testing and how successful it's been. And then we'll take some questions after that. Thank you very much.
Stunning.
Well, thank you, Mr. President, for your leadership and for your high expectations that really made this all come together.
Oh, they're
and for the
separating the speakers now from Trump now that the virus is inside the White House. I get it.
for providing his leadership at HHS and allowing both Brad and I the opportunity to work on this project. I think it's clear that America does lead the world in testing. I'll go through some of the charts that
This
show
guy
that we
too.
lead quantitatively. I will also suggest that we lead in the diversity of tests, which are very important to establish the testing ecosystem to keep America safe. And clearly, as we've said multiple times, no one beats America when it comes to quality.
Guys, I want to be really clear about this. Trump's stated goal of 12 million tests in May if we achieve it, would only be 80% of the minimum that we were trying to get to a month and a half ago, okay? If it goes well, we're still 20% short.
We'll top over 9 million tests. And if you look at per capita, everyone talks about South Korea being the standard.
Not anymore.
Today, we will have done more than twice their per capita rate of testing.
So I hate to keep interrupting, but you guys need to understand. South Korea has no cases anymore. They have no one to test. There's no symptoms. So, I mean, not literally, but South Korea dealt with this 6 weeks ago. So now, continuing to compare to South Korea, we're 41st in testing per capita. South Korea itself is not really the important thing now.
The authorization by the FDA, under the leadership of our secretary, of many different diagnostic tests, of diagnostic devices, and now of serology tests. So you've heard a lot about the different testing, and you see some of the machines up here. Most of the diagnostic tests, all but one, rely on the amplification of the viral RNA, the viral genetic material. And we've talked to you about the diversity of tests. They're very high throughput tests that are done at big reference labs like LabCorp and Quest. But very importantly, there are also tests, and you heard us talk about Cepheid, delivering over 2 million tests, vitally important to rural Americas and to places that do not have very large infrastructure. You've also seen the Abbott test we've talked about. There it is on the left of the president, delivering about 1.4 million tests as a point of care test. You get the result within 5 to 15 minutes. And we have deployed over 235,000 of these tests to the state public health laboratories in every state of this country to make sure that that point of care testing capability is there to research outbreaks like in nursing homes or in certain industrial capacities, and well over 90,000 to the Indian Health Service so they could test at a point of care in remote locations. The president also talked about a new first-in-class test. It's listed there as an antigen-based test. This is very important, and you've heard Ambassador Birx talk about this multiple times, because antigen testing, although complex, is much less complex than the nucleic acid testing that we've had. Quidel had this authorized by the FDA, and as the president said, we'll soon be making over 300,000 tests per day. Do the math. That's 9 million point-of-care tests that we will have every month in just a few weeks. It will clearly add to, and to a certain degree, transform our landscape. What you don't see up here is the important work the FDA did. I'm a swab guy now. I'm very interested in swabs. In order to make all these tests work, you have to show that a certain swab made of a certain material, performed in a certain way, delivers a highly accurate result. And what you're seeing up here is some of the fruits of that labor. Without the authorizations of, for example, the foam nasal swab, we would be blowing through PPE all across the country because of the need for full PPE just to take a test. That has really been changed by this diverse authorization, and a recent authorization that allows the great manufacturer, U.S. Cotton, to join our foundational industry of Puritan.
I guess I'm a swab guy too, while we're at it.
Last week, we did over 1.9 million tests, and that number is growing. And again, as the president said, and Brad will talk about, our states aspire to do well over 12 million tests over the next 4 weeks. You see the graph growing. What you also see, very importantly, is that little orange bar on the bottom is the cumulative number of positives. Our percent positives are going down, and that's what we want to see. In fact, in 31 states as of last night, the positivity rate is less than 10%, which is not a litmus test, but is a good idea that we're doing plenty enough testing that we can enter phase 1 for careful reopening. I also want to take the opportunity to say this doesn't happen by accident. I'm seeing everyone in the audience here, and I'm so pleased that they can be here. People sitting in the front have been working literally 18 to 20 hours a day, every single day of the week, for at least the past 2 months. None of this happens by accident. It happens because their hard work, their sacrifice of their family, all for a common good. And I'm very, very honored to consider you all as my colleagues. And my last slide, as the president said, $11 billion are now being announced to be delivered to the states for the sole support of testing. This will give them the resources to partner, as they have, with the federal government.
So understand, this is what should have been done 2 months ago.
Task force with Brad and I to
Trump
achieve
said
their
1
testing
billion. This
goals.
says
And we're
11,
going to be
yeah.
very specific, and they know it, that there needs to be minimum numbers to be planned to test. They have to have plans for their vulnerable communities, including nursing homes, including those who are disabled, including those who are in prisons or who have working environments that they may have a more likelihood to spread the infection. And combined with that, the Secretary's Office of Minority Health will soon be awarding a large contract to guarantee a national network of state, local, and community-based organizations
big money.
to assure that those underserved, particularly racial and ethnic minorities, are linked to the services they need, not only testing, but in care as well. And with that, I'd like to hand it over to Brad Smith, who's the director of the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Innovation, but has really been the chief operating officer to make all of this come together. Brad.
Thank you, Admiral. I want to talk through a little bit specifically the work that we've been doing with the states. So as the Admiral mentioned, over the past few weeks, we've been working with each state to set a target for their testing goal for May. Over the series of a couple of different calls, we've aligned on what those goals are. And as the Admiral mentioned and the President mentioned, they add up to over 12.9 million tests in the month of May. For every state, this is greater than 2% of their population in the entire state being tested in May. And for many states, it's a much higher number than that. When you compare this, as the President mentioned, to South Korea is actually below that 2%, not for a month, but for their total test to date since the start of the year. And so our states have come together to set really ambitious goals that we're excited to support them in meeting. If you go to the next slide. As I talked about last time in the press briefing, there are really 3 parts to making sure that a test can happen. The first part is the specimen collection supplies. The second part is the machines, and the third part are the lab supplies that the machines need to run. And what we've been working to do is to make sure that each state has all 3 of those parts to be able to conduct the number of tests. The first part is the specimen collection supplies. The commercial market today is providing a large number of these supplies already to states and already to hospitals. But we wanted to ensure that every state had more than what they needed to be able to conduct the number of tests they're aiming in May. So what we've done is we've purchased enough tests to support the state testing goals for May and June. So we will be sending more than 12.9 million swabs and over 10 million media to the states over the course of May, and a similar or greater number over the course of June. In addition, we have several million in reserve, so if states are able to exceed their goal in the 3rd and 4th week of May, we can provide them even more swabs and transport media. And again, this is in addition to what's already available in the commercial market. If you go to the next slide. There are large numbers, has been talked about many times, a large number of testing machines across the country, over 5,000 different machines that can conduct these tests. The key part is making sure that the machines and that the labs have enough supplies to run the machines. There will be, in the month of May, commercially produced over 25 million test kits, which is either the PCR and extraction kits or the cartridges, to be able to support tests in their effort, states in their testing effort. And what we've been working to do with each state is understand their total goal. And each of the manufacturers has been a great partner with us and told us how many tests they're shipping to each lab in each state over the course of May. And what we know is that in the aggregate, the number of test kits the state is getting is greater than their testing goal for the month of May. In addition to what the states have already purchased, there's over 7 million additional tests that remain unpurchased, the majority of those from Thermo Fisher, which is the most common machine in the country. So we feel very confident the states will not only have the specimen collection supplies and the machines, but also the extraction kits and the reagents they need to be able to hit or potentially exceed their testing goals. And if you go to the last slide. The last piece of the puzzle is making sure that Americans have access to these tests. Healthcare providers, hospitals, primary care physicians are already providing these tests to date. And we, for the past 6 or 7 weeks, have been partnered with the retailers who have massively been ramping up their effort. Today, there are over 240 retail sites. We've been working with the retailers to make sure that they're specifically targeting low-income and other vulnerable communities across the country. And we are talking with them about potentially opening more than another 1,000 additional sites over the next month or 2. So we hope that we've put together the right pieces of the puzzle, having access points for patients and Americans across the country, having the specimen collection supplies needed to take the test, having the machines, and then also having the lab testing supplies with the machines. So thank you very much.
All important stuff, all good stuff, if it happens, and all happening way too late.
Okay, please, John, go ahead.
You can't hear me. We had a situation here at the White House on Friday where a member of the Vice President's staff tested positive for coronavirus, which has now caused 3 of the top U.S. officials involved in the coronavirus response to self-isolate. Two-part question: where did the system break down to allow that to happen? And what would you say to employers to look at the experience here at the White House and say, are we ready for this?
I don't think the system broke down at all. One person tested positive, surprisingly, because the previous day tested negative.
Right. At some point, you get the virus.
And 3 people that were in contact, relative contact, who I believe they've all tested totally negative, but they are going to, for a period of time, self-isolate. So that's not breaking
Totally
down.
negative.
It can happen. It's the hidden enemy. Remember that. It's the hidden enemy. So things happen. But the 3 tested negative. The one who tested positive will be fine. Will be absolutely fine. Yeah, John.
And what do you say, Mr. President, to other companies who may look at this and say, I don't know if we're ready for all this?
Well, I think, we have a lot of people in the White House, and we had one. Basically, we had one person.
It's actually 3.
So we had a lot of people that work here. This building is shocking if you looked at the numbers, and it's also tremendous numbers of people coming in. Normally, you wouldn't do that. But because we're running a country, we want to keep our country running. So we have a lot of people coming in and out. Many of those people, most of those people are tested depending on what portion of the Oval Office area they're going in. Everybody coming into the president's office gets tested. And I felt no vulnerability whatsoever, John. But the 2 people, as I said, and 3 people they have been tested and it's negative, and they'll be probably out of quarantine very quickly.
Wow, this guy doesn't know anything.
John?
If I can follow up on that, your staff, your senior staff, as you just referenced, is able to get tested every day. When will it be that Americans across the country will be able to get tested every day as they go back to work?
Very soon. I mean, really very soon. It's an interesting question because normally you would have said that you are not tested and you would have been, knocking us for not getting tested. So if we get tested, it's a problem, and if we don't get tested, it's
That's
a problem.
a complete distortion.
But I like the way your question was phrased better this way, because it is a positive. We are tested. We have great capability. You look at all of these machines here. They're incredible machines. They're the best anywhere in the world. No place in the world has this kind of equipment. Other countries are calling, sophisticated countries, and they're calling lots of countries, and we're trying to make as much as we can available to them, because there's nothing like what we've been able to do in literally a couple of months. What they've been able to do, the private sector, how they got it done. This is a 5 to 15 minute test, as an example, the Abbott Laboratories test.
Notice Trump's pointing to test question is when is everyone going to be able to get tested every day?
This is things that didn't even exist a short while ago. So we do have a great testing capability. At the White House, we're doing it. And I think, generally speaking, we had a call with the governors the other day. Generally speaking,
they loved it.
Without exception, they were all extremely happy with what's going on with respect to their testing. Okay?
But should people be told to go back to work until they have that assurance that they and their co-workers are able to get a test, which we're still not there?
We're leaving that up to the governors, as you know, and if we see something wrong, we'll call them out and we'll stop it.
And it'll be their fault,
we are leaving it up to the governors. Some are being not aggressive enough, in my opinion, and some are being a little bit aggressive, but they're being very careful. And the people of the country, they've learned a lot over the last 2 months. They've learned about social distancing and washing your hands and other things that we've all learned and talked about. They've learned about, I see just about everybody has a face mask on. They've learned about face masks, the good and the bad, by the way. It's not a one-sided thing, believe it or not. But our country has learned. Our country has been incredible.
The bad of the face mask.
And you see the numbers, they're dropping very substantially. The numbers are dropping around our country very, very substantially. So we leave that, John, up to the governors, and I think they're making a lot of good decisions. We've had, as I said, a great relationship with governors, Democrat and Republican, and I think overall they're making very good decisions. Nobody in this group. All the ones behind the rope. That's interesting. Please.
Thank you, Mr. President. You said in your comments earlier, we have met the moment, we have prevailed. To you, sir, is the mission accomplished even with 1.4
No,
million?
we prevailed on testing is what I'm referring to. That was with regard to testing.
Oh, okay.
You never prevail when you have 90,000 people, 100,000 people, when you have 80,000 people as of today, when you have the kind of death you're talking about, when you have potentially millions of people throughout the world that are dying, that's not prevailing. What I'm talking about is we have a great testing capacity now. It's getting even better. There's nobody close to us in the world, and we certainly have done a great job on testing. And testing is a very big, important function. By the way, some people consider it more important than others, to be honest with you. But testing certainly is a very important function, and we have prevailed. We have the best equipment anywhere in the world.
Listen to
Okay,
that.
please. Yeah.
Some people consider testing more important than others. Okay, what people for what? Like, it's a meaningless thing to throw in there.
Still technology related to vaccine research. Is this something you're concerned about? What can you say?
So what else is new with China? What else is new? Tell me. I'm not happy with China. They should have stopped this
China.
at the source. They could have stopped it right at the source. So now you're telling me they're hacking. So I just say this, Steve, what else is new? We're
Sir,
watching it very closely.
If I could follow up, sir, the South China Morning Post, the Beijing newspaper, says that China would like to reopen negotiations on the trade deal to make the terms more favorable to them. Is this something you'd be interested in doing?
No, not at all. Not even a little bit, no. I'm not interested.
Hey, there's
We
an
signed
answer.
a deal.
I like that.
I had heard that too. They'd like to reopen the trade talk to make it a better deal for them. China's been taking advantage of the United States for many, many years, for decades, because we had people at this position right here where I'm standing, sitting right in that office, the Oval Office, that allowed that to happen. No,
Right.
I'm not interested in that. Let's see if they live up to the deal that they signed. Okay? Please, go ahead.
Mr. President, what are your thoughts about a second round of direct payments to Americans that's included in the House Democratic bill?
Well, we're
Everybody
talking
got
about that
$1,200
with a lot of
Everybody's
different
good.
people. I want to see a payroll tax cut. I want to see various things that we want. I want the workers to be taken care of. But we are talking about that. We're negotiating with the Democrats. We'll see what happens. But as I said, it's a transition, and this is really going to be, in my opinion, we'll see. But I think it's going to be something that's going to be very special. It's a transition to greatness. And greatness is next year, right from the beginning. I think we're going to do fantastically well. I view the third quarter, as I said, as a transition quarter. Could be pretty good, but
Let's
a
hope he's
transition
gone by
quarter.
next year.
Toward the end of the fourth quarter, you're going to see some numbers that are going to be tremendous, I think. And next year, you're going to have potentially the kind of numbers that you saw before, and maybe even better, because there is that pent-up demand that is, a lot of people wanted to do things, they were ready to do things, and they've had to hold back because of the virus. So I think you're going to have, with that pent-up demand, a phenomenal year next year, unless somebody messes it up by coming along and raising taxes, doubling, tripling, quadrupling your taxes, like a certain party, namely the Democrats, want to
Quadrupling
do.
people's
You'll
taxes.
mess
Can
it
you
all up.
imagine?
We had the greatest in the world. I presided. This administration presided over it. It got great for a reason, and we'll do it again, and we'll do it again very quickly and very easily. I see that happening. Yes, ma'am, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. Almost everyone, as you noted, in the Rose Garden is wearing a mask today. Why haven't you required everyone at the White House to wear masks before now?
Well, if they're a certain distance from me, or if they're a certain distance from each other, they do. In the case of me, I'm not close to anybody. I'd like to be close to these two gentlemen. They're hardworking, great men, but they just said, frankly, let's keep it this way. So obviously,
there's a lot of reports about Trump thinks it'll hurt his reelection to be seen wearing a mask, and he thinks he'll look dumb. That's the truth.
every one of them, from what I see, these are White House staffers, they're White House representatives, they're White House executives, and everybody has a mask on. We've had just about everybody I've seen today has worn a mask. Yeah.
Were you the
please
one
go
who
ahead.
required that, sir?
Yeah, I did. I required it. Yes.
Yeah.
Please.
Does anyone believe that?
Mr. President,
He
you're now
required
promising
it.
that everyone who needs a test will be able to get one at some point soon. Can you give us some figures on what you're changing?
You gotta
to
cover your
ramp up
nose, though.
testing? When will that be a true statement exactly? And how exactly are you going to accomplish that?
Well, it's a true statement already. We have more testing than any country in the world by far, but I'll let Admiral go into a little bit of the future.
When you look at the testing numbers that we worked with collaboratively with the state leadership, it's not just with the governor, but the state health officers, the state epidemiologists, the public health labs. It's really a combination of testing those who need something for diagnosis, diagnostic testing, tracing, so testing those who have been around the people with a diagnosis. But the largest fraction of that is really moving into surveillance, that is testing those who are asymptomatic. And when you do the numbers, this amount of testing on a state-to-state basis really is in the range that we need to accomplish all of that, certainly within the range that we need. So it really encompasses those three things. The other thing I would say is, particularly as we move into the summer, there are surveillance mechanisms, and I talked about them before, like a weather radar. And just think about that weather radar. The influenza-like illness network, which is at about 75% of healthcare institutions, and syndromic surveillance. So if we see a blip on that weather radar, combined with CDC personnel in every single state, and with contact tracers, we really run to the fire, right? And that's when you detect, you trace, and you shut off that outbreak right when it starts.
Mr. President, there does seem to be a double standard here, Mr. President, where members of your own staff can get tests frequently when they need it, but ordinary Americans cannot. So when will the rest of America have the same access that members of your own White House
He's not going to
have
answer. They keep asking.
And you know
question.
what? If we didn't get the tests, if we did no tests in the White House, you'd be up complaining, why aren't you getting tests for the White House? See, we
Not
can't
the
win
question.
because if we didn't get the test, you'd be up. I understand you very well, better than you understand yourself. And frankly, if we didn't
Real
get
Freud,
tests done,
this
you'd
guy.
be up complaining about the fact that we didn't have the tests done. Now that we're doing so well on tests and so quick and so fast, 5 minutes, et cetera, and so accurate,
Can you
you're
imagine?
complaining that we're getting too many tests. So you can't win. Go ahead, Phil.
What an idiot, guy.
Mr. President, many Americans want to return to their normal lives, but they're afraid to do so. How can you ensure Americans that it's safe to go to their own workplaces when the most secure workplace in the country, the White House, cannot contain the spread of the coronavirus? It's infected some of your own staff.
Well, when you say some, so we have a person, and the person got something happened right after a test was done. 3 other people
Something happened.
met that person, came into relative contact, very little contact, and they're self-quarantining. That is not exactly not controlling it. I think we've controlled it very well. We have hundreds and hundreds of people a day pouring into the White House. It's a massive
People are
office
pouring
complex, including the very large building right behind us that you know so well. So I think we're really doing a very good job in watching it, and I think it's very well contained, actually. And part of the reason it is because of all the tests we're able to give. But it was one person, and the other people were only people. They're quarantined. You understand this, Phil. They're quarantined for a specific reason. The reason is they were in the general proximity of the one person. And the one person, I believe, will be fine in a very short period of time.
Why hasn't Vice President Pence followed the CDC guidelines of self-isolation and other people who might have been exposed
Well,
to this?
that I'm going to have to ask that. He will give you that information. Whatever he is proceeding and doing, he will give you that information. I'll make sure that they put
Pence's
out a notice.
explanation
John,
was
go ahead,
completely
please.
cryptic.
Mr. President, up until now, it's thought that the most vulnerable people were those above the age of 60 or 70 or 80, and the children were pretty much, I don't want to say immune from this, but weren't affected by it. But all day long in the news today, we have been hearing and seeing this terrible syndrome that some 85 children have now. 3 of them have died. What is the task force talking about in terms of that, and what could be done about it?
Yeah, we're seeing that all over the world now with young children. Very, very tiny percentage, but it's the swelling and the skin rash, and we're looking at that very closely, John. It's a phenomena that's just been brought to everyone's attention a couple of weeks ago. Admiral, you may have something to say about that.
So thank you for pointing that out. And again, I've said many times I'm a pediatrician and a pediatric ICU doctor. This syndrome, which we call, or similar to Kawasaki syndrome, it has been seen in a novel coronavirus before, and it's associated with illnesses. So we have a very strong activation on this. We do know treatments for this, but the CDC is interacting actively with the Pediatric Intensive Care Unit Network to create case definitions and to understand how this is going and if there are predispositions. The National Heart, Lung, and Blood Institute, I spoke to Dr. Gary Gibbons, who directs that, who is advancing many research projects based on that. The ASPR, the Assistant Secretary for Preparedness and Response, has a team out in several areas looking at if there are any special treatments. We know what the basic treatment is, but this is a little bit different than we normally see. So there really is an activation among all the branches within HHS, working with networks at children's hospitals and ICU nets. It is a small percentage, but it is quite frightening. And this reflects the fact that this virus affects the vasculature. We see clotting, we see strokes. And this is a vasculature phenomenon of inflammation we see in children.
President, with this newly emerging syndrome now among young children, what do you say to parents who would like to get their children back to school but are now looking at this and potentially afraid to do that?
Well, again, it's a tiny percentage, but you're right. So we're looking into it very strongly. And the Admiral, as he said,
In
he's
3
known
months,
about
we'll
this
hear something
for
about that.
long before this happened. But it is a very, very small percentage. And people recover from that. The children recover from that. Right?
Yeah, yes, sir. Most do recover from this, but it is a serious and it can be a fatal condition.
Oh, people can die.
So,
okay.
We do want to make sure that parents understand that high fevers, red rashes, particularly in your child, you may need to contact your healthcare provider. There are treatments for this. They work very effectively if gotten early, at least for the vast majority of the cases.
We're studying that very closely. And
Right.
It's been on the radar for weeks, actually, because we've seen this for quite a while. But
Trump was on the ball
been,
with it.
very rare, but we're looking at it very closely. It's very important to us. I think one of the things we're most proud of is this just came out, deaths per 100,000 people, So deaths per 100,000 people, Germany and the United States are at the lowest rung of that ladder, meaning low is a positive, not a negative. Germany and the United States are the two best in deaths per 100,000 people.
As you all can see, that's
which,
very
frankly,
much not
to me,
true.
that's perhaps the most important number there is. Please go in the back, please.
Thank you.
Not looking
Thank
good,
you,
is
Mr.
it?
President. I have two questions, one on the Ahmaud Arbery case and one on the coronavirus. The first on the coronavirus, the vice president is said to be in some sort of self-isolating, keeping his distance from people. What do you say to Americans who say, how can you keep me safe? How can you reopen the government if even the vice president is self-isolating? And why hasn't testing
Pence
gotten
isn't,
up
I don't think,
to the point where
self-isolating.
every American who wants a test can get a test?
Well, the vice president, first of all, has been tested, and he's negative, and it was tested yesterday, tested today, and he's negative. He's in very good shape, and I think that that's going to be fine. As far as Americans getting a test, they should all be able to get a test right now. They should be able to get a test. That's the problem with a question like that. We go through a whole...
How does he not get it? He says maybe we'll do 12 million tests in May and everyone can get a test. Well, of course that's not true. There's 331 million people here. How can you say if we do everything perfectly, 12 million will get tested in May and everyone can get a test? Doesn't make sense.
I think it's horrible, and it's certainly being looked at by many people. I'm speaking to many people about it. He looked, I saw the picture of him in his tuxedo. It was so beautiful. I mean, he looks like a wonderful young guy. Would have been a wonderful, just a wonderful guy. I think it's a horrible thing. I think it's a horrible thing. Now, with that being said, as you know, they're studying the case very carefully. They're interviewing everybody involved, and we'll see what happens. To me, it's a very sad thing. I spoke to a number of people that are very much involved in it. I've been following that one very closely. It breaks your heart to watch it. It breaks your heart. And certainly the video was a terrible looking video to me. But you have a lot of people looking at it, and hopefully an answer is going to be arrived at very quickly. But it's something that is heartbreaking.
Specific question about the case, if I could ask it.
Go ahead.
The specific question I have is, you said that there possibly are things that happened that that were not recorded on the tape. Could you expound on what you mean by that and your thoughts
Yeah.
on?
Well, I saw the tape, and when they moved left, I don't believe, when they moved left outside of the tape, nobody saw what was going on. Nobody saw, it's an empty spot on the tape, I guess. Now, do they have additional tapes? I hope. But I will say that it's something that, based on what I saw, doesn't look good. Somebody that I have a lot of respect for is Senator Scott of South Carolina. You know who I'm talking about. He's a great gentleman. He's a great senator. He's a great gentleman. Tim Scott. And I called him 2 days ago. I said, Tim, what do you think? Tell me. What do you think?
He called Tim Scott because Tim Scott is black. This happened in Georgia. He's like, hey, I know a black guy. He's a senator from South Carolina. Let me call him and see what he thinks because he happens to be black.
Questions, one on testing and one on Democratic states that you tweeted about. First, the money for this new testing support today comes from the CARES Act, which you signed into law 42 days ago. Did your delay in embracing widespread testing have anything to do with a desire to suppress the official number of U.S. cases and deaths as you try to reopen the country?
No, we just wanted to make sure that we had the proper machinery, apparatus, and everything else out there before people started wasting money. It's a method of saving money. We want to make sure we had even things like this. Plus, they have machines that are far more complex than this. They have massive machines at some of the laboratories that can do millions of tests. We want to make sure everything was in place. Okay, go ahead.
And earlier today, you tweeted that Democrats are moving slowly for political purposes. Why do you believe that their motive is politics rather than public safety? And how do you respond to criticism that you're also motivated by politics to try to grow the economy ahead of the election?
Well, I think that if you look at Pennsylvania as an example, if you look at various other states, I won't get into them, the people want to go back. The numbers are getting to a point where they can, and there just seems to be no effort on certain
the idea that Trump could actually answer a question with multiple clauses within it, I mean, it's just, Trump can't do it.
Our country open. I want our country open too. I want it open safely, but I want it open. Don't forget, people are dying the other route. You can go with the enclosed route. Everything's closed up. You're in your house. You're not allowed to move. People are dying with that too. You look at drug addiction. You look at suicides. You look at some of the things that are taking place. People are dying that way too. You could make the case it's in even greater numbers. So it's it's a situation that some people, and I've noticed that some states could be moving more quickly, and also at the same time safety. Look, safety is paramount, but people are dying in the lockdown position too. And everybody understands that. They're just starting to find out.
Yeah.
And look
Some
at
of
what's
them
going
from the
on with
virus.
drugs, and look at what's happening with suicides. Yeah, please. Please, go ahead.
Hi, Mr. President. So Americans have been self-quarantining for several months now, social distancing, yet we're still seeing about 20,000 new cases a day, 1,000 to 2,000 deaths. Is there anything else the administration is planning to do to get these new cases under control? Because we seem to be on a plateau. Or is this just
well,
a fact
excuse
of
me,
life?
the 20,000, the numbers are way down from what they were 2 weeks ago. I mean, the numbers are really coming down, and very substantially. This weekend was one of the lowest we've had. This is, you know, the numbers are coming down very rapidly, all throughout the country, by the way. There may be one exception, but all throughout the
Anybody
country,
agree?
the numbers are coming down rapidly. I think you see that, Admiral.
But now 130,000 cases that go through August. Is that,
Deaths,
do you
not
agree
cases.
with those models? Is that your expectation
Well,
as
the
well?
models haven't been exactly accurate. These are models done by a lot of think tanks, a lot of universities. You look at some of the models, they've been way off. A few of the models have been accurate, but as far as the models are concerned, if you go by the model, we were going to lose 2.2 million people.
If he did
and
nothing.
because we mitigated, we did
Ridiculous.
things that were very tough for our country to do, frankly. We had to turn off our whole magnificent economy. We had to turn down the whole country. We're at the lowest of all of the models. I mean, if you look at, I guess, the 120, 100 to 120.
So remember, that's not true. Trump was talking about 60K. We're at 80K. He's talking about 100K. The model says 135K. We're not at the lowest. He's lying. He's lying to you uncontrollably.
To lose for this is too many people. It's a disgrace what happened. But if you look at the models, we're at the lowest of those projections. But the models are not models done necessarily by the White House. They're models done by many people all over the world. And if you take the most respected of those people, many of those models are wrong. I mean, they've been wrong as far as the U.S. is concerned, because those numbers are nowhere near what was projected potentially.
An expectation of what the death toll is going to look like by the summer, by the...
You know what? I don't want to think about it even. I know that we're doing everything we can. We're doing a good job. We acted very early.
Dude, that's his
We
job.
acted extremely early in keeping
What
China
on earth?
out of our country and
I don't wanna
banning
think
people
about
from China coming in other than our
Shouldn't be
citizens, which we
president.
obviously had to take. And they were quarantined or watched carefully. They were tested. They were watched very carefully. But we had about 40,000 people coming in from China, from Asia, and we had to obviously take the people. Can you imagine if I said you're a U.S. citizen, we're not going to take you? That doesn't work. So, but they were very carefully. I was with Ron DeSantis. He said they literally put the people that came in from China in quarantine for a substantial period of time. No, that was a big decision. I think we saved hundreds of thousands of lives by acting very early. And when I did this, I think the Admiral can say it, everybody was against my doing it. Everybody was. The professionals, the doctors. I was pretty much by myself on that one. And it was a lucky thing we did it, because we saved hundreds of thousands of lives. Yeah, please, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. Earlier today, the Vice President urged governors to have all their nursing home residents tested. Why not just mandate that? Why not require that? Have you considered that?
Well, I would certainly consider that. I will mandate it if you'd like. I think it's important to do.
If that
and I think,
journalist
frankly,
likes it, Trump
some
will
of the
mandate it.
governors were very lax with respect to nursing homes. It was obvious right from the beginning. The state of Washington, where 26 or 28 people died very early on, and I would have said nursing homes, and I did say nursing homes. That's what they should. Now, some of the states, many of the states are doing that, but I think all of the states should be. They have the capacity to do it. They should be doing nursing home. That is a real vulnerability.
The two staffers that were announced last week as testing positive, are you aware of any additional White House staff?
No, not at all. I'm only aware of people that saw them, were tested, the tests were negative, and they're quarantining anyway. So, please, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. I wanted to ask, are you now or are you considering separating some more with Vice President Pence as a precautionary measure?
Well, first of all, the job he's done on task force, the job he's done, frankly, as the
God.
Vice President of the United States
Just
has
answer
been
the
outstanding.
question.
And he's a warrior, too, just like doctors and nurses. I mean, he is working so hard, and he's coming into contact with a lot of people. But again, he tested negative, so we have to understand that. But he comes into contact with a lot of people. It's something probably during this quarantine period we'll probably talk about. I have not seen him since then, but I would say that he and I will be talking about that. Yeah, we can talk on the phone.
Question for Admiral
Please.
Giroir, if I could. The president just said that Dr. Fauci, Dr. Hahn have tested negative. Then why do they need to be isolating? Is there some concern that they could be spreading the virus in some way? Is there a concern about the testing? Why do they need to
Right. I mean, if
isolate?
Fauci and Pence both test negative, why are they doing different
I'm
things?
so happy you brought that up, because it underlies a lot of the questions here. If you test negative just at that one point, that just means you've tested negative for that point in time. We know that the incubation period for this virus can be many days. So the CDC guidelines really says that if you're in close contact, just testing negative on that one day doesn't mean you won't be positive later on. So the prudent and the recommended thing to do is to self-isolate yourself for the entire period of incubation and really then some. So that's what they're doing. It's a precautionary manner because they were negative.
But then why not Pence?
We all hope that they remain negative, but if they turned positive in a day or two or became symptomatic, that's still possible even with a negative test.
Okay? Thank you, sir. Go ahead, Phil.
Mr. President, in one of your Mother's Day tweets, you appear to accuse President Obama of the biggest political crime in American history by far. Those were your words. What crime exactly are you accusing President Obama of committing, and do you believe the Justice Department should prosecute him?
Obamagate. It's been going on for a long time.
Oh,
It's
that's
been
the
going
crime?
on from before I even got elected. And it's a disgrace that it
What's the
happened. And
crime?
if you look at what's gone on, and if you
Obamagate.
look at now all of this information that's being released,
Where's that in the
and
criminal
from what I
code?
understand, that's only the beginning. Some terrible things happened, and it should never be allowed to happen in our country again.
What's the crime?
And you'll be seeing what's going on over the coming weeks.
What
But
crime?
I wish you'd write honestly about it. But unfortunately, you choose not to do so. Yeah, John, please.
Crime. What is the crime exactly that you're accusing him of?
You know what the crime is. The crime is very obvious to everybody. All you have to do is read the newspapers, except yours.
No, we don't know
John,
what the
please.
crime is. What is the
Mr.
crime?
President, if I can just get a clarification on the testing. We've seen clearly that the numbers of tests have gone up. There have been some advancements in testing. But you said twice here today that every American who wants a test can get a test.
Yes.
That's not the case. 1.9 million tests per day is far short of every American that wants a test to be able to
Well,
get
I'm
a
going to
test.
have the Admiral, but I will say just from listening and hearing like you do, we all do, not everybody should get a test because they have to have certain things and they're going to know when they're not.
So here's the deal. In May, we're going to test at most 12 million people. And everyone can get a test, even though 12 million is less than 331 million. But not everybody should get a test anyway, so then it doesn't even really matter how many tests we have.
Now in America, anybody who needs a test can get a test in America with the numbers we have. If you are symptomatic with a respiratory illness, that is an indication for a test, and you can get a test. If you need to be contact traced, you can get a test. And we hope, and not hope, we are starting to have asymptomatic surveillance, which is very important. Again, that's over 3 million tests per week. That is sufficient for everyone who needs a test, symptomatic, contact tracing.
That's a
and,
different story.
To our best projections, the asymptomatic,
Only symptomatic,
kind of surveillance we need to get that. And that's the way it is. And remember, I work at HHS. I work there every day. I don't get tested every day. I get monitored for my symptoms. Am I febrile? Do I have any other symptoms? I wear a mask when I go in. That's a safe work environment for the environment we have. If I became symptomatic, I would get a test, and if it were positive, I would isolate it, and there'd be contact tracing to stop that, just the way it was done here. If I'm not symptomatic, I do the precautions as everyone is recommended in phase 1, and that's the essence of safely opening America.
And John, the numbers are coming way down, and they're coming down rapidly, and that's a beautiful thing to see.
That's not
and that's
true.
pretty much universally all across the country. They're coming down very rapidly.
That's acutely
So,
not true.
Very important. Please go ahead.
Admiral, if so Americans who are going back to work shouldn't expect and shouldn't want to have the same thing that people coming to work here at the White House have, which is the ability to get tested regularly, regardless of symptoms. Is that what you're saying?
let me clarify as well.
Yeah.
People who come into close contact with the president get tested on a regular basis. Okay. If I were not in close contact with the president specifically, I would not get tested, like most people here do not get tested. That's a very specific circumstance. When I work at HHS, I go to HHS, I don't get tested. I do the exact thing that we ask Americans to do, to monitor your symptoms. If you are symptomatic, self-isolate, get tested. We're one of our community-based testing sites at your hospitals. There are even at-home testing now that has been authorized. And to cooperate, that if you need to be contact traced, be contact traced and cooperate with your local public health. But not everybody who walks in here gets tested every time they do. If you're symptomatic, here at HHS, at a meatpacking plant, at a school, you need to get tested.
And the meatpacking plants now are doing very well. There's great testing around those plants. And we're finding out who had the problem. They're being quarantined, and the meatpacking is moving along very nicely. But they were trouble spots. They were hot zones, definitely. Please. And you know, one thing I think is very important, though, John, just to finish, we have now, and nobody says it, they just don't want to write it, by far more tests than any other country in the world.
Come on
not
with
even
that,
a contest.
dude. Come
and
on.
the quality of our test is the best anywhere in the world. That's very important to say. Please go ahead.
So to make sure I understand the White House's position, are you saying that right now you feel there is enough testing, adequate testing across the United States, or do you feel that it needs to be ramped up, and by how much, if so, does it need to be ramped up?
I think we've been clear all along that we believe and the data indicate we have enough testing to do the phase 1 gradual reopening that has been supported in the president's plan and the task force plan. And it has to be a phased reopening. Nobody's saying turn the light switch on and everyone go, because then it would be really impossible to control the spread of the virus. There are many models out there. The Rockefeller Foundation published their recommendations of about 3 million tests per week. That's exactly what we're doing. If you look at our agent-based models, it's far below that. If you take the Safra Center at Harvard and correct their misassumptions, like on the sensitivity of the test, the mitigation processes, and how many people get hospitalized, you get about that number. Now, I am not going to come here and say we can absolutely swear it's God's truth that this is the number we need, but we know we have enough to open, and we're going to be very careful with our ILI net, with our surveillance programs, and with the data come in to inform us even further as we grow and learn. And I think Brad.
And let me just add a little bit to that, because most days I don't come to the White House to work. I either go to FEMA or I go to HHS. And let me just talk you through what the protocols are there, because I would never get tested if I wasn't coming to the White House. So every day when we come in, we get our temperature taken and we get asked questions about if we have symptoms. If you don't, then you enter the workplace. And then there's hand sanitizer all over the place. In rooms that are made for conference rooms, they put pieces of paper that say don't sit in essentially every other or every third seat to separate people. And so there's a lot of precautions that we're taking in the federal government that are separate from testing, and those are the precautions that the agencies that Admiral Giroir and I are working at every day are using.
It's just the same stuff over and over again.
If people want to get tested, they get tested.
And there's
we have the greatest capacity in the world.
You want to test?
Even close.
Well, clearly
if people
not.
want to get tested, they get tested. But
not true.
For the most part, they shouldn't want to get tested. There's no reason. They feel good. They don't have sniffles. They don't have sore throats. They don't have any problem. If they do feel there's something happening, they have the absolute easy. In fact, Ron DeSantis of Florida, the governor, doing a fantastic job in Florida, he said he's got a little bit of the opposite problem. He's got so much testing that people sit around and wait for people to come in, that they have a great overcapacity for testing. And there are numerous other states that have told me the same thing. That's, by the way, a good problem, not a bad problem, okay? Yeah, go ahead, please.
Many times that the U.S. is doing far better than any other country when it comes to testing.
Yes.
Why does that matter? Why is this a global competition to you if every day Americans are still losing their lives and we're still seeing more cases every day?
Well, they're losing their lives everywhere in the world.
Nasty question.
And maybe that's a question you should ask China. Don't ask me. Ask China that question, okay? When you ask them that question,
she's an
you get
American
a very
journalist.
Unusual answer. Yes,
with
behind
the
you,
White
please.
House press corps. Can you imagine? Who is she?
So
to
why
ask
are you
China?
saying that to me specifically?
I'm
that I
telling
should
you.
ask
I'm not
China?
saying it specifically to anybody. I'm saying it to anybody that would ask a
Well, he
nasty
pointed at her
question
and
like
That's not
that.
a nasty
Please go
question.
ahead.
Why does it matter?
Okay. Anybody else? Please go ahead in the back, please.
I have two questions.
No, it's okay.
But
We'll
you
go over
pointed
here.
to me. I have two questions, Mr.
Next,
President.
next, please.
But you
that
did-
must
you
have been
called on
Caitlin
me.
Collins.
I did, and you didn't respond, and now I'm calling on
Sorry, I just
the
wanted
young
to,
lady in the back, please.
I just wanted to let my colleague
Okay.
finish. But can I ask you a
Ladies and
question,
gentlemen,
please?
thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Wow, Caitlin Collins just shut down a Trump press briefing. She just shut Fox is already off of it. Caitlin Collins, Trump rage quitting. Oh my goodness. Can somebody please clip that for him? I need a bunch. Oh my goodness. So let's see here. I need a bunch of clips from this. I need the Weijia Jiang question. We need Caitlin. If anybody can, Aaron Rupar is probably going to tweet these. So if somebody can send me the links to his tweets. Caitlin Collins rage quit moment. And then what was the other one? There was one other one that I wanted. Hold on a second. Okay. The Obama Gate crime, when Trump was asked what crime was committed, and he said the crime is Obamagate. If somebody could do me the favor, just because, I mean, I'll do it. Obviously, I don't need your help producing the show, but it helps. If you can monitor ATRUPAR, Aaron Rupar's Twitter, he almost always posts these, and email me those 3 clips. It's Weijia Jiang's question where Trump says, why don't you ask China? She says, why are you telling me to do it? And he's like, no, I'm not. Caitlin Collins forcing a rage quit, and then the Obamagate is the crimes thing. Please get that stuff over to me because I really, really need that. Okay, let me thank. The best way to support this stream and every stream is when you get a membership on my website. Info is there. Let me thank some people. Mary Erickson signed up on my website. John Kurakawa has signed up on my website. Harrison Sweet is new member number 3 today. Marcia Tyndale is new member number 4. Kevin Fountain, you're new member number 5. Also want to say thanks to Sarah Baldwin, who's new member number 6 at joinpacman.com. Gene Bajarski pledged on Patreon, but we're going to count it. Also, Gage Gritzman is new member number 8. Robert Havens is number 9 today. Beautiful. Andre Ruth is new member number 10 on my website. Also, a big thank you to Madhuri Singhal, who is new member number 11. I really do appreciate all of the support from people who sign up. We do have this coupon code 2020 now, which will save you 66%, and everybody will get a thank you. Let me quickly take a look and see if Aaron has posted any of those clips I just mentioned. He's usually pretty quick with this stuff. Let's take a look. So there's that one. Oh, here it is. This was a beautiful moment.
Mr. President, in one of your Mother's Day tweets, you appear to accuse President Obama of the biggest political crime in American history by far. Those were your words. What crime exactly are you accusing President Obama of committing, and do you believe the Justice Department should prosecute him?
Obamagate. It's been going on for a long time.
What an idiot. What an idiot. Okay, I don't think he has the others. Here he was asked what the death toll is going to be. He said, I don't even want to think about it. Okay, so these clips are clearly going to be available to me for tomorrow's program. But what a nightmare, dystopian situation. I mean, just completely unbelievable. A few super chats that have come in. Dream Hollow says, open up protests alone promise hundreds of cases, if not thousands. Connor Brenner says Schwab. Light Show says Trump. Why should I use facts when I can listen to my feelings? Exactly. Is Jon Snow on the wall? I don't really get that one. John Simon says, where is the wall being built? Right. It could be between states for all we know. Steve Lation says, repeat, etc. Yeah, that is the strategy. That is the strategy that they are employing here. People watching on Twitch, I have so many of you to thank for getting those Twitch subscriptions. Adam Punk, I Am CompuBear, as well as Eric Rothschild, Socialist, who else? Shimron Ron, as well as Grok23, Sluman, SupDNS, Mongo Smash, and Dranoa. Everybody just signing up. Very, very important stuff. And so appreciated. All right, I may be streaming the Fauci testimony tomorrow. We're trying to work out the schedule, not totally sure yet. But certainly, if there is another briefing, I will be here. Remember, get my daily email digest of the show for free by signing up at davidpakman.substack.com. We'll see everybody tomorrow. New clips publishing on YouTube for the rest of the night.